with Joseph and Mackenzie, and we have a fresh new face, Dan Brown. Hello, Dan.
Hey
uh,
guys, how are you?
he's from SketchUp Trainer, and he owns the SketchUpTrainer.com, and he's got quite interesting thing to talk about this week. So I wanted to just kind of have him on board and talk about interesting things. So, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, I'm getting audio feedback on your like a double back.
Do you hear that? I'm good so far.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Oh, you know what? It's my end. I have the video stream up.
Oh, I see.
That's awesome.
My bad.
No worries.
Good way to start, right?
No, we're good.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit of what I do and what I offer. And I think I'll just share screen here right away and kind of show you. So yeah, my background's in architecture, and I used to work for Google as a SketchUp trainer several years ago, about 15 years ago. After working at Google, I started SketchUp Trainer, where I provide SketchUp training, design consulting services, 3D modeling work, anything related to SketchUp. So on my site, you can access courses, you can access membership. I do events like webinars. For example, I am doing a 4-week webinar starting next week, actually, on this exact topic. So I'm doing a session specifically on dialing in on Enscape and what it offers and sort of my sort of workflow. So this is, quite honestly, this is a good little dry run for me in sort of exploring some of that, and particularly taking a look at how users kind of use Enscape specifically within SketchUp and do that. I'm also a reseller of Enscape and Chaos as well. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
Cool.
Yeah,
today we're just gonna talk about SketchUp and Enscape, but if you feel there are some things that you want to add in SketchUp workflow in general, you're certainly more than welcome to. And we have enough of SketchUp knowledge to go around. So, and Mackenzie here, she is SketchUp user as well, but she's perhaps not as experienced as.
I'm the lighter end of all of us by a long shot.
So she's also picking up quite a lot as she goes through some of these things in weekly basis. So I'm sure a lot of viewers will be as well. So we appreciate any of your insights as seasoned trainer and a user of SketchUp. But as the title of today's session says, let's talk how to start Enscape with Dan Brown. So we're gonna talk a bit about Enscape, aren't we? How long have you been using Enscape, if you don't mind me asking?
So, oh God, I actually, I'm trying to think. So Basecamp in Palm Springs, which I think was when you and I first met. Is that 18?
Was it?
Or was that 20? Was that 18? I think
it might have been even older, but yes, I remember using Enscape back then. Yes, in Palm Springs days.
I think it was like 20. So let's say 2017, 2016. I actually I did a contract for Unreal Engine for Epic, where I did the SketchUp to Unreal when that sort of first transition came out. And it was at the time where I was switching from a Mac back to a PC because I needed to do this for Unreal, this recording content and training. And I came across Enscape. So I'm at this parallel line where I'm doing work for Unreal and I'm kind of handed Enscape, and I'm like, oh damn, this is like so much easier. Like the Datasmith transition from SketchUp to Unreal was still like,
it's very divided.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not, and for me, I was never a V-Ray user. So I was very much like SketchUp Podium kind of, that was my workflow to get in Photoshop. So when Enscape came on, I literally like bought a desktop Windows machine that I'm still using. It's like actually still working pretty well.
It's actually awesome.
And yeah, just haven't looked back ever since. Particularly in the rendering work, mostly architectural interior, the stuff became so fast paced where like I didn't have time to be in Photoshop, to be in to wait for renderings to do. So yeah, Enscape's been obviously a game changer in a lot of that. I think the challenge now though I have with Enscape is clients now know how fast it is. So,
oh gosh,
it's like, and as a consultant, it's like, okay, hey, can you get in, make that change, and like send it in a minute? And it's a double-edged sword where, yes, things are so instant now that then your clients are like, okay, like get me that in an hour, and
Right.
things will take time, and particularly in a couple of the contracts that I have, like I do design consulting work for Starbucks for New York Metro. So a lot of designers will give me their SketchUp file, and then it's really my job to execute the renderings in Enscape. So some of them come in from different skill sets. So they may have lighting already set up, or they may have materials, only kind of dubbed in quickly. So, it's kind of my role to, as a consultant, to just kind of, make it look pretty.
That's
that
cool.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before the show, we did a little bit of preparation, and I happened to share my tester model with Dan, and I just let him just kind of dissected and critique it a little bit. So I'm gonna be put on the table and and just
Yeah.
let him rip,
Scared to
Yeah.
hear it.
well, here
We've
you
been
go. Go
oohing
ahead
and
and
awing over it for I
yes.
don't know, a couple weeks now. So
Yeah. So, well, just to kind of give you a little background on this model is I put together this model, imaginary project, if you will, just to kind of do demonstration, either workflows or testings and such. So it is quite well optimized, yet I left some mistakes in there to just kind of demonstrate some of the workflows. But today we wanted to focus on how to get Enscape started and some of the tips and tricks that go along with it, and the preset that we are about to mention. So that is a preset that I have on that model, and there are certain things that Dan's going to show us how he does set up his presets and go about starting the Enscape.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to do, which I was doing as you're talking there, was I wanted to just kind of bring it back to what the default would be.
that's yeah.
That most designers typically sort of start with. Yeah, so this is pretty common in what I do when I'm receiving a model and someone's like, hey, take this model and now sort of render it. So good thing is like you already have a lot of good assets already done. So like, when I walk through this, the other day, first thing I like to do, one is I use a 3D connection space navigator because walking through in SketchUp is always challenging because you're walking through walls. And then I rarely am actually ever in the Enscape viewer. So I rarely click in the Enscape viewer to navigate.
Yeah, it's a 3D mouse for those of you who don't know what that is. It's like a little knob that you can just turn, wheel forward and backwards, so you can just swim through your model rather than kind of jarring the mouse control and keyboard control.
Yeah, the like scrolling, glitching, and so yeah, when I first launch, I'm always doing live or synchronized view. So that's kind of step one, and then step two, I'm just kind of looking through, seeing how fast the model is, and that's more so of like, okay, how how
Rev
well is
your
my
engine a little bit
computer? Yeah,
to
How
see
heavy is
like
it?
where.
okay, there's no lighting yet. You
Mhm.
know, how much work do I need to do? Okay, and you know, at that point, I'm then also looking at your scenes. So I'll kind of quickly go through. Right, you have your basic model view, a quick little aerial. I really appreciate actually too that you turn off animations in SketchUp, because I do the same thing. I turn off the transition between scenes because I don't need
Thank
Mhm.
you.
to wait that 2 seconds, right? We don't have 2 seconds to move between scenes.
Yeah, not when your client
Um,
wants it yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So you have
also
sunlight.
like I mean some little bit of animation from scene to scene give a better sense of space, so it gives you better feel of where you are located in the model than like a little jump teleporting.
Yep.
However, often our scenes are not set up in a more progression way so that we can end up like it kind of zooms around sometimes, and then you can be zooming inside the wall and you'll be just swimming into the wall, and that's very jarring experience too. So between that versus a smooth progression, I pick the teleporting method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's depending on the model too. Like this is only, a couple scenes. Like we kind of, this is where like I actually don't know where I am in the model
Right,
because I just don't know this
because you
model.
didn't actually like swim to it.
Yeah. So now I'm like, oh, okay, we're in that, we're in that
Yeah, whereas if you
back.
had the animation, it will just kind of take you from there to there. Therefore, you have a bit of more reference.
Yep. Yeah. So when I look at this, like if you told me, and let's go actually, what was the first view? Well, so there's two things. When I look at a model like this, I need to know, am I rendering interior or exterior? Because my plan of execution is going to be quite different.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I have to do both, then I need two presets. If I just have to focus on interior, then it's more forgiving in what I need to do. Most of the work I do is mostly interior, so I usually start interior and then I worry about any exterior like nighttime rendering stuff after, because it's just then a different preset to sort of set up.
Yeah.
And then let's kind of assume like in this that you have lights, but like this doesn't have to be a super dramatic, like super realistic rendering. You want to get it close, but not like, we're not going to spend 2 days doing lighting and reflection and material. We want to spend like 2 minutes. So what I'll typically do is go into my visual settings up here, and I want to see if you have any other presets, and which you do. So I'm going to click on your preset so I can kind of see more in line with what you were trying to kind of create in that setting. And then the only thing that I look for then is within the sky. Enscape doesn't link the HDRI or skybox. So if you use a custom skybox, you need to send that to the designer as well, or consultant as well, because this is a link on your computer, not to the preset. It doesn't embed.
Do you use Skybox very often?
Yes.
I see.
And the main reason is so that you can control sunlight.
I see.
Where do you get that file?
So that skybox is a HDRI file. So there's tons of these that you can get online. Do you have any preferred ones that you use, Joe?
I get what I get, and one of the bigger benefit of using Enscape has, for the longest time, honestly, I don't use Skybox very often, but if I ever do use, I use either 360 photos that I've actually taken, or
Okay. Yeah.
just there was like a also method to uh basically export a Google Street View and then into a 360 image so that you can use
Yeah.
it for Enscape Scene 2, which also
What?
has its downsides. But again, it doesn't. And one of the benefit of using Enscape was that it didn't need to be HDRI files specifically. It can still use regular JPEGs that are 360 photos as a
Yep.
background was one of the things.
You're exactly on the right point. So for me, I'll show you the custom skybox that I use, but there are times that, yes, I'll use my own Pano. And this is the program that I would use. This is Pano Fetch. It will grab the Street View image as a 360 for whatever Street View that you're in. It's a little Chrome extension.
That's awesome.
Oh, but it's no longer available because it doesn't follow. But yeah, maybe you can't use this anymore.
There used to be a way.
Yeah,
no, there's not.
Maybe I still have it.
You might not be able to install it, but you can maintain whatever you have. My only gripe in that was that the pitch for the
horizon.
The horizon, or either the scale of the background, it just looked very different to what I anticipated it to be, and it wasn't really possible to correct it. So if it is like a little tiny spots on the exterior or through a window, it's fine. Yep. But if you were gonna try to use it for exterior view, you have such a weird unmatching background, so it didn't really work for me.
Yeah, I think in most of the like retail work that I do now, the better way, or the way that we'll do it, is literally like screenshot the Google Street View image and place it as a banner.
Yep.
And then that way, when you're here in the model, you can start to see that banner.
Yep.
Makes sense.
That's certainly a way I have handled as well.
And then you can get like fancy if you want to do.
You could have a little circle drawn in the wall up from it, and then actually map it on the circular wall as well.
Yeah, I usually will do like a little side profile projection, because then what I try to do is like I try to find where the horizon line is in the photo, and then I'll kind of take that point and move from there down, but then I'll move it in context of like my view. So if I'm here, oops, getting us dizzy, I'll move this up and down.
Yeah.
Depending.
That's cool.
But to go, oops, I'll give this a second to load. Let me delete that. So yeah, for other skyboxes, there's tons of websites for them. I sometimes use these. I rarely do now, because like I have a couple that I like, and then I just kind of go to what works. But there's so many different websites that have HDRIs. The one that I use as a default, so if I go wrong folder, let me find I'll show you what my default one is.
You have too many jobs.
Yeah. So this is my default.
Okay.
Oh.
It's a gradient.
Yeah.
It doesn't cast any color. It's just
no color, no shadows. Okay, so a skybox is no more than just a white, whatever the lightest point is. The whitest point is the sun in that image. So if I want to shoot a studio environment, this is my skybox, because I've had critiques where if I use white background, it's too white or it's not realistic. So it'll do a gradual roll where it'll go from white to black or white to grayish. But then the downside to this is if you want renderings that have like, particularly interior, that have like long casting shadows, this preset is not going to give you that. But for an interior, of course, my Enscape just
decided to hide.
So if you want those like deeper shadows, this extension or this preset isn't going to do that. Oh, so this is where my graphics card is hitting its limit. It will like, hold on, let me stop share. The only way around this is to close Enscape or close SketchUp and then reopen. So give me a second to do that, and I'll walk through some of this while it does that.
No worries.
So the skybox, it's basically my trick in telling Enscape that I want a studio lit environment. So there are too many times where I do interior renderings and the lighting would be way too dramatic. The sky would be just kind of like, I would just hit white background or just try not to have that, or it'd be overlit. So I was like, wait, why don't I just take a gradient and have it go white to black, and then at least you get like a little bit of smoothness to it. And yeah, it kind of works as like my starting point. And then if I need sky, it's usually a background image that I have, or I'll switch to a skybox if I really need to.
I see.
So those usually are what works. Come on, SketchUp. I know yesterday or last week you did a session on upgrades to 2025. I haven't upgraded yet.
Oh, confession time.
So for me, I could care less about PBR textures, and I actually really do not like the materials and the cubes that they are now. I need the flat textures. So I'm like very reluctant to upgrade until like some other things are in the works. But so yeah, I'm slow on doing that.
There is a setting, however, you can turn it off so that the automatic generation of those material doesn't impact your model unless you specifically turn on those features.
No, it's not that bothers me. I don't care about the PBR textures. It's the thumbnail image of materials in the material library. I want a flat swatch. I do not want a cube because I can't understand what any of the materials are now.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like literally have no idea. All right, so my model's back open. Let's see if this works.
Yours loaded faster than mine.
It's too many extensions open too. That's half of the problem. Let me hit share. Yeah, so like this, this is heaven for me. All clean.
Yeah.
Swat, it's still a mess, but the new UI I can't find anything. And then you can't there's no way like in 2024 you could switch to small thumbnails, medium thumbnails, large list view. You can't switch back to like a flat view, right?
Right.
Maybe a feature request, I don't know. Okay, so let's get back into here. Ignore that. All right, so yeah, so after looking at your preset, I usually look at sky first. I try to see if you have sky on or not, which you don't, or you have like the basic sky, which is fine. Output settings are what they are. From there, I usually go to atmosphere, and your atmosphere settings are pretty darn close to what I do.
Do you have sun brightness at 1%? That's an odd thing to do.
3 usually.
Okay, we're very low.
Yeah. So if you go, I've done this too many times. If you go past 3, it usually starts to then throw like those harder shadows into the space.
That actually depends on the quality of the rendering setting too, versus like medium, high versus very high, ultra high, a medium, high, ultra. Depending on which one it is, the amount of shadow that computer is gonna or your machine, your graphics card is going to try to attempt to generate, whether it's your preferable look or not. That depends. So the amount of percentage varies quite a bit depending on the card you have and also the quality of the image setting you have. But
interesting. Okay.
My preference has been very low. And again, I just put it down to 1. I cannot turn it off because it doesn't give me the natural look. But 1, 2, 3, like somewhere below 5 is basically my sweet spot as well.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I'll stay here for a second. So anything in atmosphere. So fog, yeah, completely turn that off. Not necessary. Sun, 1 to 3. Night, shadow sharpness. Shadow sharpness, I tend to try to drop it as low as I can. Depends on the model. Depends on, what you're trying to sell.
I usually put it way down as well. Sharp shadows aren't realistic, in my opinion. Often it becomes very distracting to your scene. Anything with a big sharp line and contrast becomes like a eyesore or eye catcher in often cases. So I like to bring it right back down as well.
And then why do you turn off wind?
like any eye catcher removal is basically what I'm doing here. I don't want trees like waving at me like, look at me here. I don't want any of that. So I turn off the wind.
Okay. So I turn off the wind because, if I had wind turned on, right, and I export this scene,
it's different every single time.
It's different every time. So I had a project where we were doing, it was the Philadelphia Flower Show when they were outside during COVID. And I had all these awesome trees in the rendering. And to do the exhibitions, I had to do it in Photoshop and layer mask a ton of things. But I went to go re-export and all my trees moved. So all my layer masks were completely like, I had to start over. So I'm like, well, how can I stop that? And then, lo and behold, wind. So the only time I ever turn this back on is, if I need to do.
I would imagine it takes up more resources if you have it on.
Yep.
I don't know if for sure, but I can imagine so.
No, you're definitely right, because anytime I slightly move, right, that's taking up graphics card to do that, right?
Right. So, and then, if you have it too much, it looks like a storm going on, and it's just really, it's just a laughter point. And, I want to talk about my building and design, not a dancing tree in front of us. So, I think it just becomes a major distraction point. I just hate the fact that wind is turned on by default. And one of the reason, and you might not have caught it here, but my water there is actually not water. It's just glass, or it's a solid. Actually, that is to avoid accidentally being windy on water, having like ripples of water.
Yeah. Even so, the water texture. So for the for renderings I do for the actually, let's see if I can find one.
Yeah, so that water, for all of you watching either now or recording, that's not actually water. It's just a glass kind surface, reflective surface. I don't say the word water, or I don't use that keyword because I don't want it to turn on.
Because then it does the ripple. Yeah. It's hard to keep consistent renderings for that. So I'd have to do these indoor flower installations, and it was, they dye the water black, and to get it to look that reflective, that mirror like, it's literally the same exercise where you just kind of do that. Or if you really need to make it look like water, then sometimes it's just a quick Photoshop thing at the end. So yeah. Okay, we're on the same page so far. That's good.
We're not yelling at each other so far. Yeah, that's good.
So I will sometimes adjust artificial light brightness if I need to do like a quick tweak where my interior lights aren't bright enough.
I often increase that, but that also depends on the scene. Here, I made the building design so that I have enough of sunlight that can make its way into the building in general. So I don't have to rely too hard on artificial brightness. But in many cases of like both residential and commercial setups, you're literally in black box, and you just need help of artificial lights. And often you just need to pump that up to 200% to just get any glimpse of the scene that you've designed.
Sometimes it's really rough.
So I think I think your challenge in that I think your challenge with that is in auto exposure, and I'll get into that in a second.
Yes, please.
So yeah, this all looks good. Curious that you don't use auto contrast.
I often do, and and I don't know exact state that I left this preset at, and I welcome any of your questions as well. I often keep it on, is what I generally do. It might have been like a scene that I just needed that specific look, and I just turned it off and did a bit of manual set, but it's usually on for me.
Okay. And then do you play around with any of the effects?
Yes. You might have noticed my vignette amount is actually higher than a default amount. I believe vignette is like 10% or 0.
30,
30. I usually pump that up because, again, I'm trying to drive focus into my design, and often in commercial, especially, people don't want darkened scene, and sometimes having very thickened vignette can kind of give this grungy look that makes a scene a bit dark. But I feel like it still drives focus into the center where I'm trying to show what I'm trying to show in the scene. So I have personal preference to increase vignette in a lot of scenes. Even, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit dark as a personality. Like even my setup here is a bit dark. I just kind of want that drive towards where the light is, and that's generally what I do. Perhaps not, anywhere beyond 50%. Somewhere between 30 to 50% is where I usually end up at. The other ones, motion blur, I usually just turn it off. Lens flare, I just turn it off. Bloom, I turn it off. Chromatic aberration, I don't bother with it as much. In often cases, I don't need to worry about it ever, but I turn it off altogether just for the heck of it.
Yep, you're exactly. So the only thing I would add to this. Well, I'll dial in my preset to see what the difference is, and we can go between the two after this. But just kind of curious to get your case for this a little bit. But yeah, vignette, I would say it's personal preference. I always used to like it just at 30. I've had clients come back and just actually want it at 0.
Which then I will do. And again, that really is a personal preference. And you just got to feel out your client's need and what they feel like. They just want really white and like bright and just bubbly kind of scene, then sure. And at that point, you might have to just pump up your exposure a little bit to make the whole scene like just fun and bright kind of look. But you as an artist, you have to kind of feel out your client's need.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. What is your preference on edges in renderings?
I want edge all the time. That's where I want.
Agreed.
That's my default ambient occlusion, and that always has been my preference. And the number one reason that I drove towards using Enscape. Enscape by far had the best outline edge
Yep.
styling compared to any other softwares out there, and happens to be the reason why I ended up using SketchUp too, because I just kind of preferred that look of the
Hmm.
outlines. Some other 3D modeling softwares out there does outlines too, and they mostly do, I think. But there's a specific look that both SketchUp and Enscape gives in terms of outline that it's just personally preferable.
Yeah.
And again, um, you got to feel out what your client need is. But if it is up to me, I generally go 20/30 as a default,
Yep.
as a minimum. And but I wouldn't go more than that because then it becomes really big eye catcher. But just having a little bit of that helps out in terms of defining the geometry and also making your models look crisp and legible. And a lot of times, my modeling and rendering purposes are not for photorealism. It's to convey my design and ideas and concept. And
Yep.
it fills in a lot of blanks because you still have a lot of materiality in question. You have a lot of geometry that are in question. And if you don't have outlines, some of the things are not yet defined. So it fills the void of questions.
I totally agree with everything that you just mentioned there, because that's in par with kind of my type of rendering style and workflow. And I certainly do not miss the days of having to do like the white outline model and bring that
Overlay.
into Photoshop and do a multiply. Oh my God. Yeah. So, and you're right. I do think like having zero, right? It loses something for Enscape, right? If we were in V-Ray and had like super polished, like maybe, but that's not the type of rendering site I typically go for. So, I personally want a rendering to still look like a rendering.
Yep.
And even like your use here of people, like I do prefer the like silhouettes, like you have the cutouts.
Thank you. Thank you.
It gets so like challenging to put people in a model where it's like, okay, we have to change this, or I have to do it in post in Photoshop to like bring other people. It's just so if I can do it in here, it works well where you don't have people sitting. The challenge, most of the
Yeah,
models that I do now, like
they stick out.
yeah.
What's your
Okay.
preference or thoughts on the style of outlines, by the way? You know how the
Like
mode can be
percentage?
changed from sorry. Not the style of the outline. You can do the sketch mode.
Yeah, I haven't played with this much. And I think this is getting better. I haven't had a use to export this, although like I haven't had the model to do it. And your model might change this. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I miss doing these types of like hash drawings and like yeah, this style is like way up my alley. The colored pencil one's actually sometimes pretty cool.
Yeah, watercolor and color pencil
I
ones are quite fun sometimes. Perhaps not for live presentation purposes, but in my
Yeah.
opinion, when you're just trying to like have like a little cover page made of
Mhm.
your model when you're just not sure, having like a little fun backdrop for your project title block or cover page, watercolor or sketch with a color pencil, I think
Yep.
makes it kind of fun for client to just kind of stare at for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, and then I think so auto exposure. Tell me And this is sort of my, this is like
lead me to it. Yes, please.
I'll segue into. Curious why auto exposure? Convenience, time?
Yes, convenience, time. A lot of my case, I use Enscape and both Enscape and SketchUp for live presentation purposes. And if I were to swim into the scene, and then if I need to change exposure every single time without the auto exposure turned on, I can't really do that live in front of the client that is in my meeting room or screen sharing with. So I keep it on, and I tend to just have, it may not get me to the 90, 100% that I want the scene to be, but I want more of a generalized exposure the visual settings set, so that I can go in there, show just enough for the conceptual ideas and the things that we need to discuss. And then I'll go back, and if I need to shoot, especially interior scenes, I have to turn it off to get a meaningful, good interior scenes. So then I'll turn it off, and then I'll drive specific exposure and even turn off auto contrast to bring up certain aspects, either more highlights, more shadows, that sort of thing, to get to the level that I need it to be.
Okay. So yeah, let me show you. This is what I'll show you what I typically do right from the bat. So let's assume that like this is the default, and let me just rename this as default.
Sure.
So the challenge, I should change back your style. Oh, this is one bug that drives me crazy. So if I go to duplicate this preset, because I want to now make a new one and then change that new one, I'll click duplicate, click OK, but then it keeps me on my existing preset. And I can't tell you how many times I've changed my existing preset accidentally instead of the one that I copied.
I have accidentally changed my existing preset many times, but I had not realized that is a thing. I ought to bring it up to chaos myself as well. But that is also the reason why I always keep a exported preset on as a file, because there's too many times I accidentally change it. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So first thing that I'll do in here is, so here's default. Default looks pretty good, right? Sky, all that. I think, so what I want to kind of potentially get you out of is auto exposure. And the main reason is I too would always rely on auto exposure, but when I would look at it here, it would look fine. I'd set up internal lighting and it would look great in this view. But the moment I create that rendering that turns and looks this way, all my lighting is completely different.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn off auto exposure. And what I would suggest to you is don't use, the problem with that is you don't have control with the sky here without using a skybox. So even just find like a generic blue sky HDRI. Or if you, like in this case, I won't worry at all about the sky. I'll use my
gradient.
My gradient, yeah, if I can find it. Force files, you know what, dial. I can't find anything anymore. There we go. So I'll find my gradient, or I could use one of my HDRIs, but I'll use my gradient. It has to be a 2:1 ratio. So if we look at that as a start, now the sun is different, but you can see like all the way at the top of the sky is white, all the way down at the bottom is black. I'll make sure auto exposure is off. I'll leave that at 50 just to begin. So I kind of work backwards. I do sky, atmosphere, and then main. So with sky, if you're doing, this is where for interior, it may be different for you can't do this skybox with interior and exterior. It just sometimes just doesn't work. But if you realize right now, like out of the bat, that the sun is too bright, this now gives you control of how bright, not the sun here is, but like the actual background itself. So this LUT is literally just your background. And now if you do overexpose, it does bleed into the model. But this is also too, remember the sun in this fake backdrop is like directly above us and is bigger than sort of a typical sun. So usually I keep this at 2000 for true skyboxes. For this, I might lower it down. And it also depends on how much black I want into the model. I can click brightest point as sun direction. So that's of course going to shift. So the brightest point of this is straight up. So this is not going to give me, it's going to give me super short shadows because it's from directly above. So that's the only downside to this, in that if you're worried about doing shadow settings and stuff, it's not ideal. But when I'm doing interior, you'll see where this works out a little bit. So fog all the way down, sun brightness. This is where now the sun is way too bright. This is where the 1 to 3 works really well. So 1 for my skybox is not enough. So I need to maybe go 3. In this case, I can kind of keep sliding this up or scrolling this up, depending on how bright the exterior is. Now, some models where I don't have any exterior and it's all white model space, I have to keep this lower. But because you have, you know, some landscaping and some context, it's pretty good. I may have to darken the gray of the sidewalk, but that's something I'm just kind of looking at now. Wind intensity down. We'll keep all these the same. Image, auto contrast. So it's going to boost that up a little bit. And then I'm usually more in the warmer side. So 5000K is kind of where I'm at. All of these down like you had. And just to understand the lighting, I usually turn vignetting, and then if I need to bring it back up, I'll just reset. So I'll turn that down. And then main, I need my outlines. So 20 to 30 is usually good. 20 is kind of the sweet spot. Sometimes 30 is just too much. I tend to just always use high because that works for my computer. So I'll keep that there. Auto exposure, right? I'm not going to turn that on, but I play with it. I realize, okay, how close am I to what auto thinks? And I'm pretty close. I'm actually a little too dark. So 50 tends not to be enough. I tend to bring this up to 60. But now in doing that, everything's overexposed. So it's a constant balance. Do I lower
the brightness
of the sky? Do I lower the sun back to 3? Maybe even 2? Bring the sky back down because I want that little bit of gray.
This is incredible.
And then, yeah, 60, maybe 55. 55 is too dark. Maybe 60 is good. So now, regardless of where I move, you won't get that like auto, like expose kind of like jumping brightness. So if I move through this, I'm manual exposure. So the lighting is consistent throughout. So you're never going to get that like that overexposed, underexposed situation. So we set that up right now, looking at it from exterior, which in hindsight, I should have done it from the interior because I want to do an interior rendering. So usually for these, I set up 2. I set up an interior and exterior. But you can theoretically use both. The challenge here, though, is there's no artificial light in here unless we boost up all the lights here. So even looking at your, if we go to your LED or your hallway, see how dark.
Yeah, because this is more or less black box.
Yeah.
Black box, right? So this is fine, right? You did an Omni over it, but that is where usually what I do is I have 3 IES files that I use: small, medium, and large, meaning the cone, right? A 60 degree, a 30 degree, and a 15 degree cone. So for this, I'll cheat it. I'll say, okay, maybe I want 60. Let me place it here first. I have to unglue it. And then the value is probably not strong enough. So if I go into it, yeah, it's 1200. So I'll just slide this up to start to see, you know, how bright that is.
Right. I don't know if because I had placed Omni in the middle of the bulb, it may not actually emit correctly. I may have to also bring the Omni just below the bulb for it to work properly.
No, so the Omni will never throw enough light to properly light this. And I try to avoid Omnis as much as possible, because if you have reflective materials, it's going to create that hot spot. So I try to use spotlights as much as I can.
Because realistically, like a light bulb hanging in the middle of the space wouldn't necessarily create a cone of light.
Correct. So like in something like this, I would use a different spotlight, or B, I would take, if I can do it quick, I'll take this and do a triple. I'll copy it like this way, and then rotate and copy this way. And then rotate and copy 90. Right? I think I did that right. But now, yeah, you have to watch though where, yeah, I'm getting, actually that I think is from your Omni. Let's find out.
Yeah, I think it was already there.
Yeah, that's from your Omni. And let me get rid of my recess thing. And let me embed this into your component. Kudos for making components.
Thank you.
Right? So now,
all uniformly.
Wow.
Yep.
Black box. While we're here, the other thing that I do, so you did LEDs with the LEM, light emitting material?
You mean self-emissive lighting?
Yeah. Okay, which I do as well, because you want that light. But let's say we wanted this to be more dramatic. So let's say we wanted to calm down these a little bit, but then we wanted more drama on the LEDs actually hitting the back of that wall. So one approach would be to do, I think most people grab these line tubes and then awkwardly try to convert meters to inches. Or just kind of slide it, right?
Scale it,
like,
yeah.
You know, scaling it. So I'll do this at a minimum sometimes. The other times I'll do is I'll duplicate. There's two approaches. One is like take this and duplicate it and then move it out. So if you want that like wash to go further down, you're putting it farther away from the wall so that it hits it. Depends on the context that you have. Like if the the plants might actually hinder that a little bit. So the other way that I do this, let's see, do you have edge lighting anywhere else?
You mean emissive lighting or edge lighting? It might
Or
be
let's
their
say,
cove light under the countertop.
oh, okay, yeah,
Or
exactly.
casework, yeah.
So you did what? Those are just the emissive lights or the emissive material.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's say you want to do the same thing, but you want to do it up here. You want to uplight this, right? The emissive material is only going to go like to here, or not even. It might just kind of come to here.
Yeah.
So when I do really fancy like curved bars, I'll use Profile Builder because I have a custom assembly set up where I can do these little 6-inch tape lights. So those will do the linear.
And then it just facets along with it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's like one option. The other option is, this tape 2, which is, these are a IES file, and these are set every, I don't know, I forget what it is now, actually. Is it 3 inches or something? So I'll build this, here.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
And then usually you usually have to do a setback because you'll get that little hotspot right there.
Mm-hmm.
So then either I need to fix my assembly and do a setback, or I tend to forget to do that and just delete the last couple. The downside to this, particularly in the other project, the other wall, you typically will see the little dots there.
Mm-hmm.
So these work better when you want to just kind of hide it, or if you move it up like an inch, it usually can kind of get rid of that.
Oh, wow.
And then now it's just a matter of, it's a softer glow versus the others.
Right.
These are only at like 5 candela, so I gotta boost them up. And then you can cheat if you need to like double this. Just move and copy it up until you don't get that little seam, right?
Yeah, so for better context for some people listening in is emissive light is, I guess, more realistic look, but it's not an actual light source. Therefore, the quality of the light is very poor, and excessive usage of emissive lighting can actually introduce a lot of noises within your scene, and that's typically been true for all other rendering type of engines as well. Enscape is by far better at that. However, it still will struggle if you're just using emissive lighting only. You've got to use actual lighting sources such as IS lights or downlights and such to light up your scene. Otherwise, your overall lighting wouldn't look as good as what it should be.
Yeah, and I would say you don't have to complicate it. Like there's so many. Like I literally use 3: a small, a narrow flood, a wide flood, and somewhere in between.
Yeah. I mean, and this can be really down to personal preferences and such. I personally avoid using these proxies or the third party components that are coming into SketchUp, just so that, because for longest time I didn't have a Enscape capable machine that that I can carry around with me to go to the client's office and show. So once I show a SketchUp model with these tiny little dots along with my cabinetry, they're gonna ask me a question. That's not the pattern I want. And I'll be saying, oh no, it's just like a rendering thing. And obviously, I'm not gonna have an easy time explaining that to my client. So my general preference always has been not to introduce the third party things, or if I ever do, I have to integrate and have it out of my view so that I have easier time explaining my model. Or
Yep.
I had clients who required me to send them the SketchUp model for them to just kind of see things, because they don't really need to see it rendered. Often they just need to verify some of the views are actually working or not for them, and they want to just kind of get a glimpse of what things look like in 3D rather than rendered up with the proper lighting and shadows and such. So that's sort of where I was coming from. That's why I used some of the emissive lighting somewhat timidly rather than
Yep.
putting a lot of actual light sources where I should. But that scene is looking beautiful, by the way.
Sorry, I'm multitasking. I can't help it.
Yeah, but it's really good, or I guess let's say easy to light up a scene that's like pretty well set up, and then you throw in a couple of these lighting sources, and you can really make the scene look good and flattering.
Yeah, I mean, we did this in what, like, well, and we've been on for an hour so far, but yeah, like
with
this
teachings
is
in
just like,
between.
yeah, and this is just like scratching a bit of the surface. I think what it'll give you is that, like, just consistency. So now, regardless of where I go, like, I'm always getting this sort of light setup.
Wow.
And I really appreciate how your usage of a skybox with gradation, it basically gives no edge. Because my problem with the clear sky was that it always throws this long gray plane down across my background. Yeah,
yeah.
and it is just really distracting. I wish they
This,
had a option for this gradient box as a skybox, so that I don't need to worry about that. But yes, I'm effectively wanting that effect, but I don't have that option. I would expect that to be somewhere there.
Yeah, this skybox thing came out of a necessity where there were renderings that I was doing that I was originally always doing default like this, but I was doing stores and I couldn't cover that horizon line.
Yeah.
And they would constantly be like, okay, like, that's distracting.
It is.
So it's like, okay, let's just do white then. And then they were like, no, it's too white. And now look how it, like, totally threw off the whole model. So then I was like, wait, I need to figure out a way to do this. And yeah, I was like, why don't I just do it? I did a solid gray at one point, and I was like, no, that doesn't work. It needs to, like, be fluid. So I was like, oh wait, I'll just make a gradient.
Well, do we go to your website to find that gradient skybox?
Yeah. Self-plug. Yeah. So so this, like, workflow, there's a couple ways you can get this. One is the webinar that I have starting next week. And then also it's one of the courses that I offer. So users can either become members to get access to all my courses, or I have a course specific on dialing this up, and it's part of that class file.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you find it then.
Yeah.
Awesome. We actually had a chat. It's perhaps not related to what we've been talking about, but it's questioned directly to you, Daniel. Do you have thoughts on AI enhancer in Enscape? And the second question is, how about AI in ArcViz in general? I think AI in ArcViz in general is much. We'll probably be here for a couple more hours here. So we may have to postpone answer for that one in future sessions, perhaps. But what do you think about AI enhancer for Enscape in general?
I don't use it only because it tends to only, for me, it tends to only, like, correct the people. And if I don't have people in the rendering, it doesn't matter. So I usually don't experiment with that at all. And then, yeah, the larger question of AI in image generation, I think it's definitely for a different discussion. I'm happy to show. There's a project I worked on where we sold AI imagery for a floral event in the Middle East, and they liked the AI image so much that they built it. And so this paradigm between like selling something that isn't real and then trying to execute it, it worked. But yeah, it's an interesting place that we're in with AI, certainly. And some early storyboard stuff that I really like, but most of the times, like with SketchUp Diffusion, it's a waste for me. There's just no draw to it because I'm just going to take it right to Enscape. So for me, some of the AI stuff is particularly for image generation is still it's overhyped.
I see. I will second the thought on AI enhancer and Enscape. Like I said, my general focus is my building design or architecture and more schematic and conceptual aspect to sell my designs to my client and have a meaningful discussion. And AI enhancer is great at making the foliage look good, planters look good, people, cars, so that they are more realistic, and they do great a job of that. But that's not what I'm trying to sell often. What I'm trying to achieve through my model and rendering is my design, and my design is not enhanced by an AI enhancer. So
Yep.
I personally also have hard time using it in my general workflow because I want to draw focus to my building, not and frankly, like the people type that I'm using here don't really need an AI enhancing.
Oh, I got a tip for you for fixing these. So have two. I don't know how much time we do or don't have. You tell me.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So with Face Me components in Enscape, sometimes you get like a gloss
or like a shadow in the middle.
Yeah. So one tip that sometimes works is are these on default white or are they their own material?
They're people material, yeah.
Okay, so that's even better. So change the type so it's not generic. Change it to foliage. The downside, they now have no outline.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like I've been there, done that, and I actually tried like gloss and everything too, but I ended up where I am at. If you go to the kitchen and stand in front of the fridge, there is actually one of the trick that I built in to the Face Me component too. You see how one of them don't turn, and I think one of them are reverse faced as well. So like they don't receive the material the same way that I forget what I actually did there, but the person turns properly on SketchUp side and it doesn't on Enscape side. There's like a trick to fix that. It's like a little tiny bug that I noticed.
Okay.
I forget if it was like, if you had flipped, I think it doesn't recognize on the Enscape side, so like you have to flip it back or redo or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I've given it two different material types to those two folks. So one was like overall white versus gray, which one works better, which one. So yeah, I'm aware of some of those things that are going on with the Face Me, but I do generally like them, but I try to position them on the chair so that they don't like stick out as they turn around. And I meticulously position the billboard or the Face Me component so that their pivot point is somewhere I can put down on a chair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the only other thing I'll do sometimes, and it's like the last resort, is to like actually just explode it then.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's times where I had that weird glitch where, you know, the line is showing. The only way to fix it is actually for Enscape to tell it that it's like a flat plane and not a face me.
Especially in like in seating or like this tiny little tight corner here, exploding, I think will work perfectly fine. It's just that whenever I get there, turn around, and you start to see the side of her that you never seen before.
One other trick. So I'm gonna click this scene. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a pet peeve of mine. Let me go back to, okay, so it's not in your settings. So some users, like if you're, let me uncheck. Okay, so I unchecked live. Have you ever had this problem with batch exporting where if you're not in synchronized view, it's not exporting the exact view that you have?
Because of the save frame or?
Yeah, it's because of the save frame and because of the field of view is set to like 90. So if you're not in synchronized, your batch export can be different. So what some users will do is they'll do, you know, 2-point perspective there. For me, this distorts it too much. And if you look, the default preset for this is 90. What I tend to do is I tend to lower that down. I forget what it is. I think it's either, if I synchronize view. No, it's more than that. But I try to get the field of view to be, it's not a true 1-to-1. Like in SketchUp, I'm usually 55 degrees. I can't type in 55 here. It's not a true translation. But what I would say,
it's because SketchUp angle is not horizontal, it's vertical, or the other one is horizontal, and that's why they don't match up. Yeah.
So like I'm fine with it off that much, and usually I just stay in synchronized view. But what I would say, I do this as a keyboard shortcut that I set up. There's an extension called what is it called? It's like reset tilt.
Oh.
So I basically have a keyboard shortcut so that when I hit Command or what am I hitting? Shift T, it sets my eye level to be the horizon line.
Oh.
And then that way I don't have to do camera 2-point perspective. It's automatically in a 2-point perspective because my eye is looking straight.
I see.
I would do that like here, like see how there's there's a slight skew. I can do camera sort of split, and it's just a subtle bit. Now,
but you're doing that on SketchUp side, therefore influencing Enscape.
Yeah, exactly. You can override this if you just if you get it close like you had it, that's totally fine. But you'd have to do 2-point perspective to get the true verticals being vertical.
Having vertical, not vertical doesn't bother me at all. But I have had clients who are adamant about those things. Then I just have to resort to 2-point perspective, which will just put all of batch rendering at risk. But yeah, I've had clients or a supervisor who requires 2-point perspectives in the past, and that's been a pain a bit.
Yeah, because
good to know that tip of tilting down for your horizon. That does look
I think,
good. Yeah.
I think it was on. I think it's I don't think it's on Extension Warehouse. I think it's on SketchUpTrainer. But it was like a reset tilt. You could probably, it's an easy script to write. It's just setting horizon eye level to 0. But yeah, I think it was a SketchUpTrainer extension because it doesn't show up here. Oh yeah, it doesn't show up here. 0 tilt. There we go. 0 tilt.
Shift T is your shortcut.
So I set that up as a custom keyboard shortcut.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like usually first thing, like after finding the views, that's sort of the like quick adjustment that I'll do.
Critique me on this LED screen that I got.
So it looks great. Like I wouldn't change it much. It's interesting how you did. So it's a double layer, right? Or are they on the same plane?
They are on the same plane.
Okay. Yeah, that's like I wouldn't change it. The challenge always with those is like you have to constantly tweak, how bright are you making this, how light. And then I think I see that you changed the color because the green probably wasn't showing through.
Yeah, it was like some of that. And also at one point that used to be a video. Because Enscape has ability to play videos as a texture. Yeah. So it used to be my intro to the podcast thing where the train's passing by and my logo shows up. It used to be that screen, but sometimes if I don't have video on the model that I shared, it just doesn't play. And also I've seen some of my lighter laptops struggle with it, so I just changed to a flat image. But it's kind of cool that it can do that.
Yeah, I would say you could. So if a user, right, didn't understand that this was a LED screen, right?
Yeah, because if you don't have those little dots as a texture, then it doesn't read like an LED screen. It reads like just a flat art image.
Oh, could you have done it as a bump or a
it does have emissive value on it, but if I do emissive value, it looks like a backlit picture. Whereas here, because of this, I don't know, pixelizing, it kind of reads as a screen.
I was gonna say, if you want it to like just feel like it's glowing a little bit, just give it.
Oh, nice. Do a little backdrop of it.
Yeah.
Or actually, hold on. Wait, one last. It's a rectangle on the back side, right?
Yep.
So if I select that, see if I have my assembly built correctly. Yeah. So I'll take this and move it forward 3 inches. Oh, moving in the wrong direction. There we go.
Oh, whoa.
You got it.
Nice. It's like an edge lid screen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. But cool. Yeah, no, I like how you did that because I'm wondering if you could have. I mean, we didn't talk about materials at all, and I honestly don't play. Enscape did a post on LinkedIn about like what's the first setting people do, and material was a lot for people's first approach. I barely touch materials. Once I have like lighting and settings sort of done, usually right now is where I'll start looking at materials in terms of like, okay, this needs to be adjusted, or maybe some reflection or some gloss. Until I get my lighting right, I don't even want to touch materials. But the point I was going to say on here is you could have, and I don't know it well enough, but I think you could have done a bump, or no, it would have been reflection. Yeah, it could have been a reflection map to basically black out the image instead of having to draw the pixels. That makes sense?
Out. I could have used an image with those black dots within the image on the emissive layer.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit further, it would have the emissivity. Where's the emissivity
at? It's
self-illumination. There. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't have emissivity layer in Enscape then. then
No, I
yeah,
think
you
you
would
would have
have
to.
to have maybe reflection, or might even be
Yeah, it probably take just as much time to like figure out if it's
or
transparency or
just image itself, like the original
oh,
image. If it has any pixels on it, then the black dots would not be emissive, I would think.
right. Hmm. Cool. Yeah, this is a great model. This is
I was
this has
fishing for
been
it. Thank you.
yeah, it's been fun to tinker around. I always like jumping into people's models and seeing
Yeah.
how they're using it and changing it. So
Yeah, we just have to have Mackenzie spend some time on a model, and then we just like go to
Yeah.
town with it.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be really fun for you guys.
But for us.
Use components, not groups. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly.
well, it's been a fun hour and 20 minutes or so, and
Yeah.
we certainly enjoyed having you and talk about some of your thoughts and workflows, especially in Enscape preset area. But it sounds like you know a whole lot more than just the presets and Enscape stuff. So I'll be happy to have you again on the show, talk about a couple more different things that we didn't get to and needs a bit more time to spend on. So we'll welcome you for future sessions as well, and we would like to consider some future topics later, and perhaps when we can find time together, we can do another session like that. So thank you, Dan, for coming on and telling us great stuff. Thank you, Mackenzie, for joining us in again. And we'll hope to do another session next week, same time, 9 p.m. Central Time. And I don't know what part in different type of the world, but hope to catch you on either live or on recording. So thank you, everybody. And I'll run the outro, and I'll meet on the other side.
Thanks for having me, and yeah, it's been fun.
All right. Bye-bye.